I've been a part of the church for as long as I can remember. I was born into the church. My dad's an Adventist pastor. He worked in this conference. He worked in Southeastern California conference. And so there's never been a time where I did not know church, where I did not know of God, where he wasn't like literally all around me. I think I'm like fourth or fifth generation Adventist, right? So it goes deep with me. And growing up, as the firstborn, I always wanted to make, my family proud, my siblings proud, my church family proud. And so I was a goody two shoes. I pretty much did everything I was supposed to do. I felt a pressure to do that. I felt like I needed to maintain and uphold the family name, maintain God's name, and just make everybody happy, really all the time. I went to college and I wanted to make some money. And so I started off as a business major. But during that time, I was involved with the drama ministry at Oakwood University. And it was called Imkanania. And we would travel and do these shows for youth federations and church afternoon programs. And man, I loved it. I loved to act. I loved to perform. It didn't matter if it was a church play or a random skit for class, or something where we had to be dramatic and I always loved performing, being other people, trying out new things. That's always been a super huge part of not only my life and my joy, but my connection to church. And during that process, people would come up to me and they would make these comments about how like, oh man, you're such a good speaker. This is such good preparation for you. When are you gonna get a church? Hey, when do you graduate? You're a pastor, right? And I said, no. I'm a business major, right? I wanna make money. So that bothered me for a long time. When I got older, my people pleasing kind of caught up with me and I reached this point of frustration. I was actually pastoring at a church here, and I just had this lost sense of purpose. I felt a whole lot of pressure, and I felt like it was impossible to live up to the pressure. It got so bad that I was showing up to work and hiding in my office. I didn't know what was happening, so I talked to my senior pastor at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, let's find you some help." So, I sought out some counseling and ended up talking to my counselor. And one of the things I discovered in that process was like, man, like it seems like you've always lived your life for other people. Like you've always kind of done what other people tell you to do. What do you want to do? And it was crazy because I had no answer for that. So he prescribed me a vacation, a vacation from work, a vacation from family, a vacation from all responsibilities, and time for me to just figure out what I wanted. The only time I could remember last being happy and last feeling purpose was when I was doing drama in college. So I was like, man, I want to go back to that. I want to go back to acting. So I came back to church and I told my senior pastor, hey, like, I think we need to come up with an exit strategy. I think I want to step away. And so I did. I stepped away. And in that process of like discovery, I kind of tore down everything. I stopped reading the Bible. I stopped talking to God because my mind told me, of course, if I read a book about you, that's all I'm going to think about, right? Like, and you're going to be the hero of your own book. It happens every time. And so I stepped away from like my faith, my religion, my everything, and spent some time just building up acting, just building up who I was, just training and exploring the world. What I found was a whole lot of emptiness there too, a whole lot of performance, a whole lot of self-focus, and not a lot of purpose or fulfillment. I met this young lady at one of my classes and it was crazy. We ended up talking after class and the conversation was really strange. Hey, how'd you get into this? What did you do? And I was like, oh, I used to pastor or whatever. That's kind of what we got to eventually. And she was like, oh, really? What church? And I was like, oh, Seventh-day Adventist. She was like, no way, I'm Seventh-day Adventist too. And it was a really cool story. And she was like, I don't think our meeting is by chance. I think that God set this up and he's telling you that you need to stop running from him. And I was like, I don't want to hear that. I'm really kind of trying to be on this new journey. Anyway, she was like, okay, well, why don't you try something new? Why don't you try talking to God like he's sitting right across from you? Why don't you try imagining what he looks like and looking in his eyes and having a talk with him? I went up to the park that was about a mile from my house one day, and I really just kind of let God have it. I was angry, and I took a journal and I just wrote down how I had tried my whole life to do everything the best that I could. I tried to make everybody happy. I tried to make the best decisions that I could. And it didn't seem fair that life hurt so much, you know? And so in that writing, like, it was cathartic. I was able to tell God my frustrations, and I felt like he was listening. And at the end of it all, I got a response, you know? In that journaling session, when it was all said and done, I stopped to listen, and God said a few simple things to me. He said, I love you. I just want to hold you. And you are enough. And I didn't know that that's exactly what I need to hear, but it was. And that was the beginning of my coming back. I started going to the park every day. Like, I was super thirsty for God. I wanted him so bad, right? On this discovery that was taking place in acting, I was learning how to discover truth, how to be honest with yourself. And this was the first time I felt like I could show up with God and be honest and not judged. I felt like it was the first time I could have this way of being that was true to myself and it didn't depend on somebody else's judgment of me. And the blend of the two took my faith to a level I'd never experienced before. I craved God. He was my best friend. Like, we would laugh together. We would walk together. We would listen to songs, and he'd bring stuff to my mind. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. That informs everything I do. I still work with young people. I work with all kinds of people now, in the church and outside the church. But my mission stays the same. And that is to let people know that God loves them, that he cares about them, he's listening, and that they're perfect. They're enough right where they are for him to work with right from there.